This is video 3, Blender Introduction. In this video you will learn how to export previously created objects as image. We are going to use word rendering. It can be quite a technical topic, but we will keep technical things aside and make it as simple as possible. You can see that I'm using the same vector graphics that I extruded in the previous video. I'm going to use this as my image for rendering. I believe you have a more exciting designs by now, but just to show you the technique how to do it, this will be more than enough. Let's find now camera icon in the properties panel and click on it. It is the second icon from top in the properties panel. Alright, now let's switch to Eevee render environment. That is the fourth icon just above the gizmo and the fourth icon with a circle. It is also called render view mode, where you will see how exactly your scene will look like. So if I click this one, you can see that now the view changed. The model is different, and every one of you, once you start doing it, you will get slightly different results. When you click render environment, be aware it is like being in a photo studio. You have a light source that you can see that in your layer panel, and it is called light. It is right here, and I can see that I also have a lot of curves. They are in collection called Portrait 3D SVG. Just to make it more clean, I will close this one here. So now that we found the light, we can see that there is also another object that was always there, camera. The rest is 3D models that you add to the Blender. Blender allows you to simulate any kind of environment, so your product can look as you want. Just to keep it simple, now you can see how the light source is lighting up your graphics. Practice by moving the light source around your object so everything gets enough of the light. In my case, the light comes somewhere from side. So I'll just zoom out by clicking Ctrl on my MacBook keyboard, and the two fingers are scroll out. So I'll just click G key on the keyboard and we'll move the light around just to find a location where I would like to keep it. I think for now I will click again here on touchpad, and this will be okay. Just practice by moving light source around your object so everything gets enough of light. You can also use other shortcuts that I mentioned before, just clicking G on your keyboard, and also try practicing using Y, X and Z keys after you click G to constrain it to one of the axes. Observe when moving the light also how the shadow changes, as this will give you more dramatic look. Light source has its own properties that you can change it by clicking on a green light bulb icon under the layers panel. When you select light in your layer panel, here you can change color, power, specular. Specular stands for reflection, and radius. You can also change the type of the light source and choose between point, sun, spot and area light. Each type will work a little bit differently. In the same light properties panel, please find the shadow function, and here shadow we can see that is checked. If I uncheck it, I can see that the shadows disappear from my 3D model. However, I want to keep them, so I'll keep shadows selected. If you click on shadow, it will expand and you can see there are more settings. Click on contact shadows to get casting of shadows on the objects that are very close to each other. Maybe it's not going to be visible right now. We have to zoom in, so I'll just click Ctrl on my MacBook keyboard, zoom in with two fingers on it and play around. I will try to uncheck contact shadows function and apply it again. So you see there is quite a big change. You can add multiple light sources by selecting the light source in 3D viewport. To do that, I will have to click Control and zoom out so I can find it and select it. I also can select it in layer panel, light here. If you click right mouse button on the light, you can select option to duplicate. You can click shortcut Shift D, and you can see that now if I move around, there will be another second light source added to my mouse cursor. And also if I release it here, I will have one light from this side and another from this side. When I duplicate it like this, I can see that in layer panels I have light 001. So it's second light source. You can have as many as you want. And you can add another way how you can do it. You can just, if you have mouse, click just right button on it, on the light, and select duplicate objects, and then you will have one more object. Then you can add it somewhere here. And I will try to add somewhere in the back. Perhaps now you have 2 or 3 light sources that can have completely different properties. In photography, so the same in 3D modeling, light is the most important thing. Therefore, you will want to spend a lot of time to get the best results. Don't get frustrated. It takes months and years of practice in order to get it right. No one can learn this in 10 minutes. Before we export the image, let's create more realistic scene or a stage. I will select one of the light that is behind and go back to Properties panel where I see color. I will change color to some kind of green. I will select this and I see there is green light on my model. I want very dark, so I'll just move the slider on the right side next to the color picker somewhere here, so the green wouldn't be so strong. Now I'll select second light that I added and select other color. I will choose somewhere here between green and yellow, just to have it more interesting. Now I want to move it a little bit more, so I'll just click G on my keyboard, move it a little bit, maybe closer somewhere here, and press again on the touchpad to keep it here. Alright, before we export the image, let's create more realistic scene or a stage. Click Shift plus Add to add, and in the panel that opens, select Mesh and let's select Plane. Plane is a 2D object that doesn't have depth, so we can use it as a background. I will move it behind my model somewhere here and rotate it by 90 degrees on X-axis. If I want to see how it looks like, I'll go on Gizmo and click X. I can see that it could be bigger, but I will just rotate around to see here. It's a better view. I will click S to scale it and leave it somewhere here. And if I rotate around with just 2 fingers, I can see that now these lines that I added, they add interesting shadows on my panel just behind it. And that's great. However, let's add one more plane. So I'll click Shift and A on the keyboard. I select Mesh and select on Plane. Now that this plane is added here, I'll just click S to scale it and make it bigger somewhere here, just to make floor for this model, and that looks really good. So now I can also click Command S on my keyboard to save it, so I can keep all the settings that I made. If this plane cuts your model in half or is positioned vertically, just rotate it, move it, scale it as you need it. We learned all of this in the first video. You could also move all your objects, but instead of moving many elements, you could move only the plane. It will be much easier. Right now your lights might need to be readjusted. Nothing surprising happens all the time. The last item we have to move is our camera. You can find it in your layers panel. So let's go to layers panel and select on camera. I selected it, but I don't see it. I guess it is somewhere hiding behind. So I'll click Control on the keyboard and try to move away to see the camera. So I see the camera is here. I selected it and it's pointing in the wrong direction. So I'll click G to move it. I move it somewhere here, but now I want to position it in a straight angle, let's say, so I can capture this model, this portrait better. I will change the view. I will go on Gizmo, click Z to have the view from top, and I see my camera is pointing somewhere just behind it, so it's not to the model. I will click R key on the keyboard and also Z, so I rotate only on Z axis and move it somewhere here. I can see that my camera is not straight to the model, but that's fine. I will click G and move on X axis. I will move it even a little bit here, and this looks okay. My camera looks straight into the model, and this is the view that I get from top. Now it's important to look from a side. So I'll click on one of the X, and from side I can see that the camera has angle. So it's pointing from top, and I assume this is a great angle to capture this image. Once we think that we have camera position in the right way, we have to see how actually it looks like through the camera itself. Click on camera icon in the 3D viewport that is close to Gizmo, is the third icon just under the hand. If I click it, you can see how it looks through the camera, and this rectangle that appears, this is the size of the image. Once we select it and look through the camera, we can also change some of the settings in properties panel. If you look into the right side, just under the layer panels, you can see that we should be in camera settings, and here we have a lot of options. We can choose what kind of focal length we are using. If you're using millimeters, we can shift X and Y, and we can play around with all the other settings. But for now, the settings that I'm using, they're quite fine. The only thing is that the angle is wrong. I can uncheck the camera before I move it. So I click it and I could see that the angle was actually bad. So I'll go back to one side. I'll select camera, click G, move it a little bit more down, click R to rotate, and rotate around X axis to make it more straight. Now I'll click again on camera icon to see how it looks like. It is better, it's still not perfect. And this is very difficult if you have to all the time switch out from this view and move it around. To switch into camera mode, you can also do just clicking 0 on your keyboard. If I click 0 and again 0, it switches between camera view and outside of camera view. There is another way, and maybe an easier way, to move your camera around at the same time while you see through it. Next to the gizmo on the upper corner, there is the small arrow. If you click on it, it will open transform panel for you. Click N key on your keyboard and this will open transform panel. In this transform panel we have item, tool and view. I have also one more additional item that I added. This is why on the left side on the screen you can see shortcuts that I'm pressing. So you will not have that, but we have item, we have tool and we have view. So while we are still in camera, so let's lock the camera to view. Once we select it, we can just use our two fingers to move around to change the angle, which is much easier than before. Also, we can click Control and zoom out and in. Also, you can just click on hand to pan around. You can click on zoom on the magnifying glass to zoom in and out. And just with two fingers onto your touchpad to change the angle. And your camera moves together So it's much more natural way to do that. Let's try to unselect lock camera to view option. And let's try to move again. And now if I just move it, I lose the camera. My camera stands here. I'm moving around seeing camera. So I don't have the options, I don't have control. If I want to zoom out and zoom in, I move it, but camera stays. If I lock camera to view, and I look through the camera by clicking 0, I can just move it 2 fingers and it will be much easier later. So let's keep this lock camera to view checked all the time. So once you select lock camera to view option selected, we can now close view. I will click N on my keyboard to close the panel. The final part is to render an image. But before we do it, let's save it again. So click Command S to save it. Click F12 to render. If you're using MacBook, you may need to press Fn key first before you click F12. Once you do that, you will see new window will appear on your screen. It is the photograph of your 3D model according to how you position your camera. But this is just a preview. If you want to save it, you must click on Image tab on the upper corner in the new window and select Save As. And when you do that, you will get another panel. Now this time it's behind my view, so I'll just drag them around. So first I will select where I want to save it. I will go to Documents, and I made already folder for Blender renders. I'll click on that, and on the right side I can choose what file format I would like to have. So instead of PNG, I'll click JPEG, and also I can choose color or RGB. Also I want to have quality 100%, so I can just click and enter number, or I can just scroll to the right side until I get 100. And before I click Save as Image, I'll just rename it, and then I'll say 2D render and click Save as Image. And that was it for this video.